Hmm. Oh, hi. Yeah, I have started recording. This is the Nicole Howard Show, and my reaction is a nice preview of what my mental status is right now. Let's not into this. Um, it was 70 degrees this time of night 3 nights ago. It is now 32 degrees. Prediction was 34. They were off. Oh yeah, it's cold. Um, it's like living in Antarctica. Well, I mean, maybe it's not as cold as there, but the fluctuation of temperature from day to night kind of feels that way. I think it's actually more drastic sometimes. Um, God, I don't know how emperor penguins do it. Live in Antarctica. Because I'll tell you what, I watched that movie March of the Penguins. Never gonna watch that again. It's just too rough to watch. Little babies, they have to sit there with keep them on their little feet so they don't freeze to death. And if they even let like an egg, they keep the eggs too under their bellies and they stand up to switch to the parent. And if it even rolls on the eggs and sits on there for more than 10 seconds, it freezes and it's like, oh my God. Or babies that after they've gotten a little older and can kind of be by themselves, they lose their parent and they're crying. And I just, no, I can't do it. I get more emotional watching stuff like that than anything else. A reality. And then if there's like even stuff in real movies like Jurassic Park, the Jurassic World, um, the second one when they went back to the island to take the dinosaurs back to the U.S. to make a park. Uh, and they left all those dinosaurs during the volcano, and they ran to the edge of the um, dock. Yeah, that was hard for me. I said, "It's a movie. This isn't happening." But all I could think about is once upon a time, this really did happen. Maybe not the stealing of the dinosaurs by humans, but these dinosaurs did go through some pretty hectic stuff. And yeah, I have a lot of empathy for animals. I mean, I do for humans too, but I've always connected towards animals way more. I don't know why that is. Um, as I've said before, I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested because I didn't speak English as my first words for a while. I spoke animal. I have a weird connection with animals. I don't know what to say. I mean, I went to a friend's house one time. I used to take care of her horses, and she needed me to come. Her granddaughter was going to be born any day now, and so she said, "Why don't you come see the routine?" And I said, "Okay." And so I came over there, and her daughter was living with her. I never met her daughter's cat, cats plural. So when I walked in, there's this big beautiful Siamese on the refrigerator in their entryway, and so I just walked up and said, "Hey, little buddy," and I let him sniff my nose, and he sniffed my nose, and I gave him a little scratch, and turned, and she was just standing there, and I go, "Why do you look like that?" She goes, "I've never seen that cat friendly with anyone in my life, even me, and he lives with me." She goes, "You have a way with animals." I said, "It's probably because I didn't know any of that information before I went up to him, or my approach would have been different, possibly. I don't know." After that, he didn't really want me to touch him again, but you know, I had a moment. Uh, so yeah. I mean, I've been bit by animals. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my own barn cat bit me a couple weeks ago. She's psychotic. She's a female cat. I love all cats, and female cats, are great, but they're emotional basket cases, in my opinion. They just are. Uh, they'll be like, "Oh, pet my belly. I'm really sweet," and then they're like, "Attack!" It's like, well, what? Why the f did you ask me to pet you then? Uh, I mean, male cats can do that crap too, but it's unusual. Male cats are a lot more, especially if you make sure you get them neutered. uh, take care of their hormone situation, and then they're very loyal, very friendly, docile animals. Most of them, depending on the breed. Mm. As I've said, I've had some breeds that were pretty out there as far as personalities go. So yeah, it's freezing out. I'm on my. Oh, I forgot to put that in my description. It doesn't matter. Nobody's watching anyway. Well, somebody might watch this when I post it. Eventually, I'm going to take all these posts, and you will have to have an account with me to watch all of them. If you watch it live, that will be free. But to be a member and watch past stuff or you missed earlier that day's episode, then I'm going to have that. I got to change my photo too because I noticed the freeze frame before I forgot to put my little intro photo on it, and it's just me standing here smiling. I got more like looks for that and views than any of my other ones. So change of plans here. I gotta do something different. Maybe I just had a eureka moment. I will find a way to get that image, my post info preview photo. It's a great idea. Um, hmm. If my camera phone doesn't suck a big one, I'd use that, but I think there's a freeze grab. There's something about screen grabs that you should be able to do on every computer, not just Apple's. Everyone keeps trying to talk me to Apple phone and Apple computer, and I've never used Apple. I know I can learn how to use it, but I don't have any other devices, so it's really you kind of have to commit. Once you make the jump, anyway, you gotta switch. You don't have to switch your computer, but it's not the same as the Android system. I've been using Droids since they came out with them. Prior to that, I had a Motorola Razr, and prior to that, I had a little Motorola flip phone that was like the Star Trek phone. It's real cute and little. I love that phone. That was a great phone. And they put a digital screen on that and a camera after the model I had. That was, I think, one of the first ones. And the thing was hardy. I could drop that phone and not worry about it busting. The Razr was not hardy. One time I went to answer the call. It was a week-old phone, and the flap just flew across my car. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And the one before that, I had dropped in the toilet. So I was like, "I went through 2 phones in 1 week. That's just ridiculous." I went through a lot more than that after that. Razors didn't survive me. I actually added it up one time. I've had like 45 cell phones. Maybe, wait, 47. I've had a lot. A good majority of them had to be replaced not because it was time to get a new phone, it was because I destroyed it, or lost it, or dropped it in the water, or left it in a lake, or broke the flap off. I broke the flap off of a couple of those phones. Although the one time I did figure out, it was during my partying days, I had been actually, that's another episode. Let's just put it this way. Some guys had done something to my beverage. And fortunately, my friend figured it out. And I was so effed up. I gotta stop saying that. I dropped my phone and the flap broke off. I was like, not another one. Are you kidding me? So mad. And I was trying to call my then boyfriend. And I was like, wait a second. I know. I wonder if it's still the computer part should still be in here. And I figured out from memory that messed up how to get it on speakerphone. And I could make calls on speakerphone with remembering what the menu looked like. But he got pretty sick of that drama that night and stopped taking my calls, which led to another tantrum. Because I think the reason it got broke the first time was a bit of it might have been the result of a temper tantrum because I was just so messed up and I just couldn't like coordinate, and I don't know, the whole night was a mess. But I survived. Thank goodness, thank God. I wonder how that girl is doing. It was one of my roommates that I was with, and she's got a couple kids now and married and all that. Very nice person. Very pretty girl. And she actually was my babysitter. She was best friends with my babysitter, I should say. So when I met her years later, I'm like, you babysat me once. She was only like 3 years older than me, too. I'm not sure why I needed a babysitter because I was like 11. Anyway, and they were 14. Well, and I don't know how things have changed, honestly. When I was at the age of babysitting for kids, you could stay home once you were 11, and babysitters, you could start babysitting around 11. I mean, I babysat kids when I was 12 that were like 3 and 4. I didn't babysit a lot because I wasn't a big kid person, but some of the neighborhood, my parents would be like, it's the way to earn money, you're going to take the job. So I'd do it. I don't know. I mean, in the 70s, for crying out loud, I found out in the 50s, they didn't even have car seats. They just had a rope across the back seat. So I don't even know what the purpose of that was. I mean, we had, I remember, an old station wagon where you sat in the back seat backwards, which was so fun as a kid. But that was a really stupid vehicle because if someone rear-ended you, your kids, your most prized possession, are in the uh, target zone of getting obliterated by whatever rear ends you. And that's where the kids always sat, was the far back. Now I drive Suburbans now, and I've been in Suburbans since I started driving. They have a third seat, but it's facing forward, and there's a ton of space behind it for storage, and and it's a big, a little different than you're at the very end of the vehicle facing the other direction. Yeah, but again, most fun vehicle to drive in. I remember we also had an Oldsmobile at one point that was a friend of my parents, and it was real nice when they first got it. And it still was kind of, the people they bought it from, it was real nice when they got it from California, and then they drove it here, and then they upgraded to it. They had a Mustang, and actually at one point they bought one of my parents' Suburbans because they'd get a new one every year because they got the GM discount because my aunt worked for a GM. My dad at one point did too. Um, but they bought this Oldsmobile off their friends, and after like a year or two, the ceiling started detaching from the foam. So when we drive anywhere, we had to hold it up. And I remember saying, I don't think this is a very good idea to do while we're driving. She's like, just, your dad's going to figure something out. I don't know if he ever did. I think he just finally cut it out, and we just had foam ahead of, and there was no nice material over it. We went through some rough vehicles when I was a kid. Mm. And then when they started their company, they started having nice vehicles. But kids, I remember, I think about it. Kids are just, we're such a-holes. And I see the kids today that are growing up, their cell phones raising them in some cases. I was during the era where if we were bored, it was like go outside and play. Or if we were watching TV, entertained, go outside and play. Why are you watching TV? I don't know if my parents wanted to watch it themselves or that was just what they were told to do as a kid. But for some reason, perfectly happy me was told to go outside and play and not allowed to come back in until it was dark. Okay. And so yeah, during that time, uh, like I said, I think kids are being raised now by their parents. I mean, by the cell phones and stuff. I had such a skewed. Every kid does this, as far as I know. They think they know better than their parents. They say to their parents at one point. I did. I remember the day I told my mom I hated her because I was going to youth group and I wanted to wear this tank top from American Eagle. It really wasn't revealing. It was a horizontal striped green and blue and white striped tank top with like a U scoop to it. So that wasn't appropriate. And I was like, well, why not? And I really wanted to wear it because it was new. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm not allowed to wear it, then why'd you buy it for me? Wasn't apparently appropriate for youth group. So what was my plan? I put on a different top and shoved that inside my bra. Well, my mom was all over that because I walked down the stairs and she goes, come here. And I said, why? She goes, just come here. And she reached in my shirt and pulled out and she goes, you're not going. I was like, I hate you. I was so mad she had busted me. And that's when I realized I had to get a lot more clever. How about pulling stunts like that? I was a straight A's. I've said this. I don't want to brag. This is ridiculous. I didn't always get straight A's. I, for the most part, got good 8th grades. But especially as I got older, I had a couple classes I had to repeat because I had like a B, and that wasn't acceptable for me. But I was a good student, and I, at this point, hadn't even kissed a boy. All my friends had, going into 9th grade, and oh no, I forgot 7th grade. I did have a boyfriend who met me in the hallway during gym and said, "Let's do this," and laid one on me, and I was like, "Whoa, get away from me!" And I broke up with him. It's like, oh, I can't believe he just did that to me. I was so freaked out. So again, it was another 4 years, 4 more years till I ever had a boy's lips touch mine. I was a good kid, but I had a side to me of rebellion because I just didn't understand. I mean, friends' parents were very laid back, and I suspect a lot of the stupidity I see in children now is because their parents are the same. And I'm not giving any of you parents crap, but my parents were wrong in some of the things they did. Their solution to making sure I wasn't up to anything was being too strict. I had to call. They had to talk to the person's parents before I stayed the night. Then when I got there, they had to talk to them. They make sure I made it there, unless they personally dropped me off themselves. And this is when I was in high school. When I was in middle school, understandably so, they did the same. But I really only went to one friend's house in middle school. Um, but also when it came to clothes, I'm 5'10". I have very long legs. All my height's in my legs. I wear like an extra long inseam, and like a 35-inch inseam I can do with flats. I have a 37-inch inseam in pants for my really tall stiletto heels. Granted, it's to cover the heels partially. My legs aren't that long. But when I'd wear shorts, I'd get sent to the principal's office constantly because you couldn't have your fingertips go past the bottom of the shorts. And I'd sit there and do the fingertips test, and then they go, oh, I guess they are long enough. Uh, but I wanted to wear dresses, skirts, and my mom would say, no, you can't wear that. So I I would leave in the morning, although nobody was even up yet. But just in case anyone got up to have coffee, I always made my own lunch, peanut butter jelly sandwich, brought my snacks, got up when my alarm went off, out the door, met my friend at the bus. Actually, I'd go to her house first and retrieve her. I'd go get Nisa, and my other friend that I watched stay the night with was Naomi. We all had Nicole, Nisa, Naomi. We all had an N at the beginning, but those two really didn't love each other. They got along at times when I'd make them all hang out together. But they really weren't like, I mean, I did that my whole life. I had different friends, different groups. Sometimes I had my nerdy, sciency, whatever group. Sometimes I had my, I guess, my sports friends. Sometimes I had my naughty friends that would smoke cigarettes behind the movie theater friends. Sometimes I had my, uh, like my best friends. Then I had my popular clique. I fit into all of them. But in any case, so I would go pick up my friend, and I don't know why I didn't change at her house. But before I'd get outside, and this is like it's dark out and it's freezing out, and I put on the skirt really quick and took off my pants and shoved those in my backpack and trotted on down to her house. Maybe it's because I didn't want her to know what I had done, or I wanted her to think my parents had let me wear that. I don't know. I'm sure after what happened, I did tell her what happened, and she didn't approve of that stuff. Nasa didn't. Naomi shouldn't care so much if I did some of the stunts I pulled. She was sometimes doing them with me. Um, anyway, I get home, and my mom's not supposed to be home when I get home. And I'm just walking. And all of a sudden I realized the Suburban's in the driveway, and I thought, oh, crap. And so I'm like sneaking in and trying to get up the stairs as fast as I can. I hear, you didn't go to school this morning in that outfit. And I was like, oh, crap. She got me. She got me. You're grounded. I was like, oh, fine. For how long this time? Well, I paid poor Nasa in Key West. Go looking for booze. We were like, I was in high school at that point. I was in 10th grade. She did not want any part of it. And I managed to get her to ride around on mopeds. I think I've already told some of this story. Oh, yeah. And Naomi, yeah. Her and I, we actually weren't up to no good, but she was kind of my cover for a lot of stuff. Her mom let her do whatever she wanted. She didn't have to sneak around. She just was there for me when I needed to. And so I figured out I just have some of my mature friends who had really like adult like voices pretend to be the moms when I'd go to some places that, and sometimes I wasn't even staying at that friend's house. I just set up for that friend to pretend to be, and I'd say that's who I'd stay at her house, and then have the phone call be made, and then my mom would talk to their mom, and then I'd leave and go to my boyfriend's. And this is because I was also dating somebody who was much older than me, and wouldn't matter who I was dating. I wouldn't be allowed to in high school to go stay at a boyfriend's house. Are you kidding me? I couldn't see rated R movies when I was in high school. Until I turned 18, I was not allowed to see a rated R movie unless they had viewed it first and approved it. However, I was allowed to watch Star Wars when I was 5. Those aren't rated R, but they're a bit dramatic. So my point in all this is that was then, and my parents were right to watch out for me because I did some stupid stuff. Uh, really stupid. I mean, I got, and I had friends that were, my friends would influence me to do things that were totally out of my character. That's the first time I ever smoked a cigarette. It was my friend talked me into taking one of my mom's. I took two, one for each of us. I didn't even inhale. And it wasn't until I was transferred schools at a different high school and I ever smoked again. And that time I inhaled. And that same friend, though, talked me into when I was babysitting. Wanted to go run back to her house to get some lip gloss or some hoodie, and it was sprinkling, and so she's like, "Let's just take the Suburban," which the '88 Suburban, '89 whatever, was in the driveway, and I was like, "I've never driven." She goes, "Oh, it was in a neighborhood. We were gonna only have to go a mile," and I did it like a stupid idiot. I didn't crash or anything, and I was babysitting my sister and another kid down the road, and I get home and that night, I was staying at her house, and I got dropped off at her house, and my parents had gotten home and taken me down there. And about 20 minutes later, I see their headlights in the driveway, and I went, "They know." She goes, "Oh, maybe they just bring in something you forgot." I go, "Nope, they know. They know what I did." And I hear, "Your mother's here, and she says you have to go home." I said, "See, she knows." Oh, Nicole had done it again. Yeah, when I heard Nicole, I was like, crap. And I said, "Who told you?" She's like, "I have been sworn that I would never to reveal who it is so that they were too afraid you would be upset." And then eventually she said it was my friend's mom down the road, which I thought that for years. It was my sister. She caved in like a second. Couldn't even believe it. My little three, well, let's see. She was 7-ish. Yeah, between 5 and 7. Let's just say that. Because I was between 12 and 14. Yep, yep, yep. That's why I learned not to ever tell her crap again or have her be part of an adventure. Uh, but because they became so strict, I would do stupid stunts like that. Well, no, that I did not want to partake in that. But I would sneak out of the house trying to come up. I came up with the thing with having my friends pretend to be the mom. I would come up with ways to get away with stuff I wasn't supposed to actually be doing. I mean, one time we were watching TV and this preview came over for a movie that was rated R, and my parents both went, "You're not seeing that." I said, "I didn't say I wanted to. I could care less about that movie." Because they said that to me, I thought, I'm going to go see that now. It was a stupid movie. I remember what it was. I just remember thinking, well, that was a waste of time. Yeah, there was this rebellion but I was a really good kid up until I hit puberty and we moved schools. I want to say 100%, okay, 90%, a good part of why I suddenly went, as I went from a big school of TC West with my best friends, which we were all pretty good kids. I mean, yeah, we did what any teenager kind of does, but for the most part, we were pretty good. To Glen Lake, graduating class of 500 down to a graduating class of under 70. And all that school cared about was sports. They didn't care about my transcripts when I walked into the human resources office. They cared about, do you play sports, when they saw how tall I was. And I just got into trouble there. I really did. I'm not blaming the school 100%, but it was, I think, they didn't have all the programs. I mean, they have 3 languages at TC West, and you could play orchestra and band. They had 1 language at Glen Lake, and you could take Spanish. And they didn't have any, classes like, or instrument. Oh no, they did have a band. They just didn't have an orchestra. And again, this sounds like I'm playing the blame game, but I'm telling you, something switched in me when I went to that school. Because I also befriended new people, and the first girls that globbed onto me were the troublemakers in that school. It wasn't until I expanded as time went on. And there was a rumor going around that I had transferred schools. This is like how kids are. That I had been kicked out of my last school, and we lived in a mansion, and that I had been sleeping with the one of the headmasters and or a headmaster and my staff from our mansion. And I'm like, okay, I've never even kissed a boy really, and I'm a virgin, and we live in a house that's technically one floor with a basement that's refinished. Pretty decent sized house, but it wasn't huge. From the back side, it looked big, but from the front, it was like a ranch style house, and then there was a 3-car garage with an apartment above it. But and I'd never been to a private school, and yeah, it was all rumors. And I'm like, well, that explains why some people give me dirty looks like they do. Jeez. Once I got the truth out about that, people's attitude towards me changed. I made a lot more friends. hmm But I started, and I got my well, getting my driver's license. That's probably when things really took a turn. Parents, if oh man, if they had all the apps out there now and tracking devices that they back then they have now, life would have been a lot more difficult. Because I know my parents would have had all that crap going. But knowing me, I would have figured out a way to put the tracking device in another person's car that night. Who knows? Although then you could track your phone. Oh yeah, I probably would have had a second cell phone, so that the real phone was left wherever I said I was, and then that way I still had a phone. Who knows? I would have found a way around it. I know myself, but it would have been a lot harder. And so getting back to it, parents when they over freak out, I think it makes the kid do. Once when my parents actually just trusted me, I didn't want to do anything because I thought they were trusting me right now. But when they suspected I was up to something, I like did stuff. Um, and but I think you should keep an eye on them, but not too much. That's my point in this whole story. Right, so I don't even know what's going on out there because it seems like technology. I remember saying in high school to my friend, the one gal that was really in the same grade as me, because uh, my two friends, one was younger. When I started seeing MySpace come up and Facebook wasn't even out yet, and everyone started getting cell phones. I was one of the first people to have a cell phone. It was the big old flip Motorola gray cell phone. I left it in a lake once all night, and it still worked unless you hit one of the, I think number 8 or 9, and then it was short out. So I could only call numbers that didn't have that number, but it still worked. Um, with like the orange, but digital buttons across the screen. Uh, that was supposed to be for emergencies only, which, of course, I exceeded my minutes and didn't just use it for emergencies. I looked at my friends and I said, technology is going to be what I think takes us all out. This is I could see how fast it escalated, and how quickly people were just on their video games in class, and then the smaller cell phones started coming out, and some students from out of town got transferred to our school from downstate, from Okemos, and it was so quickly, it happened so fast. So make your kids go outside and play. hmm We would do this thing where we'd ride our bicycles, and the mailboxes were all businesses, and we used monopoly money for each business. And one business was like, fast food, and one was the bank. Of course, we had to have a bank. And then one was maybe a grocery store. And then we'd always play this other game when it was an inside net day. We would play school and make bedrooms certain classes. That's how we practiced for going from elementary school to middle school. Our babysitter came up with it. And it was fun. All this stuff was fun. It made time go by so fast too. Anyway, other than that, I guess I don't have a lot more to say. Just checking in. I'm gonna keep this going and start updating my Instagram stuff and everything for you guys. So yeah, I think I had to go to town today again. Yesterday I went on about the vet thing, which I'm still dealing with that because I'm convinced that I'm convinced the blood pressure test should have been included. You don't know what I'm talking about? Watch yesterday's episode. Oh yeah, it's October 8th. Uh, so yeah, that is my episode. Thank you for watching. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Have a good night. Okay, thanks.